Okay, hello. I'm Rory McCormack. This is going to be my first video blog, which, as promised, is going to be delivered to you this week. Okay, so today's blog is basically going to be about types of practice, which links into motor learning. And as stated by McGill in 2007, motor learning is a relatively permanent change in the capability of a person to perform a skill as a result of practice. Now, types of practice involve blocked, variable, and random. Now, you only really kind of can talk about blocked and random. Variable, you can, but it links in very much to random. Okay, so blocked practice is the same technique over and over again, repeated. So, for example, blocked practice you would use for, say, archery. Or shooting, indoor shooting, the environment isn't really going to be changing. It's going to be the same kind of thing over and over again, especially if you're just aiming at a target. So you'd go for the same one each time. You wouldn't necessarily have to vary the skill by changing the environment or the surroundings. Variable practice is just variations of that skill. So you are changing it up a bit. So for example, you change the distance between the targets you have a bit closer, a bit further away, move it to the left, move it to the right, anything really. And then random are multiple skills in the same session, continually adapting in a highly variable environment. So you'll be changing the whole environment itself, the task at hand, the skill, and just adapting it and having the athlete adapt to that situation each time. Okay, so there's positives and negatives of each type of training. Blocked is most commonly used. In grassroots and beginner level training. This is because they don't change the environment; it stays the same. It's the same technique, so the risk of failure is massively declined. There's a very high success rate. It looks good. It's very easy to get the hang of. For beginners at that level, it keeps them very happy because it keeps their motivation high because they're not failing at it constantly and constantly. They're learning a new skill and they're completing it each time. There's a very high success rate, so it makes them feel really good. And on top of that, parental views actually massively link into this. As put yourself in the position of a parent. If you go to a club session, to a training session that your child's attending, and you see them in a kind of session where it's always changing, always kind of moving around with different things, and there's a very, very low success rate. They're failing all the time. They're not getting it. What are you going to think as a parent? You're actually, without having this kind of background knowledge, you're just going to think that they're not really a very good coach and they're not really helping your child. So, in a sense, that's one of the pluses. But actually, it doesn't help the performers learn and retain the information as much. For example, if I'm just going to do a pass in rugby, if I'm going to teach that, I'm not just going to have two people stand there next to each other and just pass the ball between them. Because although that is going to help them do the pass initially, at what point in any rugby game ever are you just going, or even training session, are you just going to be stood still next to someone passing the ball? You're going to be running. You've got attackers coming at you. You've got wind. You've got rain. You've got mud on the ball. You've got slippery hands. A million and one things. You cannot do that through blocked practice. But again, moving back onto the other point, if you're doing that kind of practice for low-level beginners, there's a lot more success, and the parents are going to, and the kids, they're going to have a little bit more motivation about them. They're going to be thinking that they're doing really well because it's working, and then maybe later on you'll start to develop that after a couple of sessions. But it's the same thing. They won't be learning as much as if it was random. Now, random practice, the transfer between skills and situations is a million times better, as I've pretty much explained already. You can transfer it into a game, you can transfer it into everyday situations. Because if you're just doing something blocked, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. There's no adaptation, there's no variation. Whereas random, you're doing it in every type of situation, every different change, every variation, every just situation that you're going to be involved in, you're going to be practicing that in. Basically teaching the athlete how to adapt to the different situations. And actually, that can be used in everyday life for everyday things. And certainly in coaching, we can adapt to our sessions. If for example, if we take it from as a session point of view, blocks. I'm just going to have a straight session, same thing, same plan, done. You've got to be varied. You've got to take into factors of how do the kids learn. What do they prefer doing? Do they like doing drills? Do they like doing games? How do they like to do it? You've got to have a plan, but you've got to allow room for improvement and room for change, or else it's not going to work. Now, in blocked practice, again, the complexity of the skill is broken down, but it's just the same point that I've been making, basically. The way that you can choose which type of practice to use is all down to the ability level of your athletes. Don't limit it to anything. Don't just go in with a closed mind. You've got to keep your eyes open. You've got to keep your ears open. You've got to think what's going on, and then only then can you decide what type of practice is going to be best. And you've got to think about the participation rate of your athletes. If they're going to be bored and demotivated, you're not going to get them back. Now, it's a mixed bag because random, high failure, but it starts to get a lot better. It really teaches them, and then it's you're in game situations, changing it up all the time, keeping kids interested. However, their motivation can start to decline, but then it will pick back up rapidly. And obviously, in block practice, high success, but a very, very high risk of boredom, which then in turn will demotivate the participants. Okay, so that's been my first video blog on types of practice. I think my next blog is actually going to be a video one as well, because we'll be talking about kind of the difference between instructing, teaching, and coaching, and it's massively debatable, and you can't really write a whole lot about it, to be honest. Well, no, you can write. Sorry, I could write for days about it, but it's a lot easier if you just speak out loud. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, you'll be seeing me pretty soon on the next one. Thank you.